following program has adult language and potential spoilers. Listener be advised.
See, that lacked the visuals. It needed the visuals.
Everybody just picture in your head this room turning around like comic books falling down, hitting us, and fucking Martian Manhunter action figures sailing across
Sex
the room.
toys fleeing out of closets.
Well, I think he meant the visuals of you doing hand gestures.
Well, that too.
Oh yeah, me doing. I'm also doing the.
You got it down pat.
I'm doing the
portal.
What do they call the rings? The ring things? What do they call
the sling ring?
The sling ring. I'm doing the sling ring. He's kind of doing that on your shirt. Not really. That's more the...
No.
I'm going to rewind this podcast back to when it didn't suck so bad.
The Marvel superheroes have arrived. Captain America,
Fantastic Four,
Hulk, Spider-Man, Iron Man, Spider-Woman, the God of Thunder,
Welcome to the Marvel Superheroes Podcast. I'm Legal Machine. With me is...
Joe Fixit.
And...
Diabolu Frank.
And today we're going to talk about Doctor Strange. Okay, so we just went and saw Doctor Strange starring Benedict Cumberbatch. And that other girl that's in all those movies.
Rachel McAdams.
Rachel McAdams. And then that other guy.
Chiwetel Ejiofor?
Yep. And then...
Or Chiwetel.
And then, what's her name?
Oh, Tilda Swinton.
Yep. Man, I'm so good at this.
And the other guy?
Benedict Wong?
Yep. And then the other guy. You know, the other guy. With the guy.
Stan Lee?
No, yep. And then the other guy. He has that thing.
That look.
Oh, Mads Mikkelsen?
That's it. All right, man.
Nice.
There's like one other person that we didn't name that's in the entire cast. The guy who played the doctor that was like the not so good doctor.
He had way too much makeup on.
He had makeup on?
He had
Is he
tons
famous?
of makeup on.
I've only seen him in like Men in Black 3. I can't think of anything else in it.
I don't recognize that guy as anything. I don't know who that guy is.
Oh, that's the only movie I can think of him from. So, what did y'all think of the movie?
Okay, so we just saw this, right? And then we got pizza, and
waited for pizza.
None of us have said a word to each other about this movie. The movie started 5 hours ago, and we haven't said a word to each other. So who's going to start talking about this movie first?
I think Frank should. He's more of the Doctor Strange aficionado.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure you're gonna rip into it and just tear it apart.
Wait, are we going to do like a bare bones outline of what the movie was about?
If you want to, go for it.
Dr. Stephen Strange is a world-renowned surgeon guy. He's all like, I'm fucking cool and shit. I'm way better than you with this, and I'm way better than you with this, and I'm definitely better than you with this. And then he's like, I'm gonna show you how I'm better than you with this. And then he shows him how much better he is, and then he's kind of a dick about it. And then he's got that girl,
And
Rachel
many other
McAdams
movies, too.
from Mean Girls, and she's
The
all
Notebook.
like, hey, like, don't be so mean and stuff all the time. Why are you such a dick like that? And he's like, you didn't think I was a dick when I was giving you dick or all that stuff. And then she was all like, no, but we're not like that anymore because I don't like do that with coworkers and stuff. And he was like, oh, well, you're not doing it with that other guy. And she's like, no. So then he's
I stopped doing it with anybody else because of you.
because of you, I don't do that anymore. And he was like, oh, I see how it is. Whatever.
It's the Strange rule.
So then he's like, hey, look, I got this thing I'm going to tonight. Why don't you come with me? Remember how we used to go to these things? And she's like, I don't really like those things. You're the one who likes those things, but you'd always drag me along. And he's like,
By the way,
all right.
I just want to say, too, it's funny that it's the Strange rule because it's the opposite of Strange. Because she might have stopped dating coworkers because of Doctor Strange, but now she has to go out and get Strange. She's not getting with familiar dick.
Right. Well, hey.
From work, yeah.
Is that a paradox? She's either getting strange dick or she's getting strange dick?
She can't win.
That's a paradox.
She's dicked on dick.
So then he's all like, cool, well, let's go to this thing. And then he's all driving around, and he was like texting while driving, and he wrecks his Lamborghini Huracan. He drives it off the side of Mulholland Drive or some bullshit. Fucking
They're in
Pacific.
New York. That's a whole other continent. Or a whole other
It
coast.
sure as fuck looked like it was Mulholland Drive or the fucking Pacific Coast Highway. So then he's all like, oh, I fucking wrecked my car. So then he wakes up, and they've done surgery on him, but they fucked his hands up. And he was all mad because he was like, well, because she's like, nobody could have fixed your hands. And he's like, well, I could have fixed my fucking hands. But again, paradox. Dude, you can't fix your own hands, right? You can't fix your own hands. So he's all like in physical therapy, which is physical hand therapy, which is really fucking hilarious because there are people there with like real debilitating injuries, and you're there like fucking
rubber bands.
With the black rubber bands.
rubber
yeah.
bands on your hands. Like, dude, you could do that at home. Like
Those are actually unspooled cock rings.
you could do those things where you just, like little girls do, where they take the string and they keep a loop through or whatever.
Just buy him a squeeze ball. He'd have been fine.
Yeah, get his freaking squeeze ball. I got 1 million on my desk. So then,
Well, don't forget, there's a key moment where he's like telling the physical therapist, you've never seen anybody come back from something like this. He's like, no, there was this one guy, and Strange's like, bullshit. They're in such a guy. They're like, it'll take me a little while, long enough until it's a key plot point for me to dig up the file on this dude that totally had this miraculous recovery.
right, and it was at that point I thought the only other serious hand injury this guy could have seen was some sort of masturbation accident.
Well, I think it was actually the guy was in a wheelchair, which could also be a masturbation accident, but still.
I suppose, depending on your
Technique.
and how adventurous you are. Anyway, so he's like, yeah, whatever, dude. Nobody's ever come back for that. He's like, well, he got all sassy with him, and he's all like, well, I'm gonna go find that file now because You know, I don't like you.
Well, he also referred to the physical therapist as bachelor's degree. So
Oh yeah, he called
yeah.
him, hey, bachelor's degree, right? He finds that guy, and then the guy's like, oh, I got it was Tibet. And he's like, ah, cool. So then he goes to Tibet or Nepal,
Yeah.
and then he learns magic. These other guys have bad magic, want to steal some books, or then they like steal.
Hannibal Lecter from the TV series wants to steal all the magic.
Yeah, and he's all like, so then he like steals a page out. And then later on, like Doctor Strange is there and he's all like, well, we got to stop these guys from doing this again. So then like they keep trying to come back and then Doctor Strange fights them off.
The
Very
end.
well done. Very well done.
That's concise, yeah.
Oh, wait, so then there's an ancient one. The ancient one doesn't make it. Spoilers.
I don't think we needed that particular addendum.
These were the pros, in my opinion. The pros were, there was not a lot of fat on this movie. I thought they would have either done more building up to him being an asshole or do more of his recovery from the accident or do more of his learning to be Doctor
more
Strange.
montages.
Doctor Strange. Right. But they didn't spend tons of time doing that kind of stuff.
Actually, he spent a fair amount of time studying. It's almost a 2-hour movie. I think it was just well paced.
I don't
I
really
think, yeah,
he
it
did
was well
spend-
paced. Yeah, because I really
That's what I'm
didn't
saying.
feel
So
that.
they were consistent. Like, they didn't drag out this part of it. Because I was like, oh, you know, I kind of wanted to see him be more of an asshole. But they kind of set up that he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Right? Which was something that I know we talked about. Like, I wonder if they're going to make him an asshole.
Oh, and he
Make him
got
an
actually
asshole.
worse when he got wounded.
Yeah, and so they established that he was a dick. Even through his recovery, he was a dick. But I did feel like some of that might have been a little bit rushed. But so then there was the recovery, and then the only part where I thought it was maybe a little too quick was how he just basically stumbled across the former paraplegic guy. And the paraplegic guy's like, I'm not going to tell. Okay, I'll tell you. And then he just tells him, like, oh, exactly. Here it is on Google Maps.
There's no way he stumbled
Hold
across
on, I'm on
that guy.
Travelocity. I'll buy you plane tickets for you. And then he just like hits the button, and then he's just all of a sudden in Nepal.
4-room or a 5-star room?
Yeah, and he's just like, and boom, he's all of a sudden in Nepal. There wasn't really this great journey to get to Nepal. He just flies in Nepal.
So you're saying instead of a 10-issue series, this was more of a 4-issue?
Yeah. So, but I thought the movie was pretty consistent with that. That none of these scenes drug on. You know what I mean? Not that would be dragging on, but anyway, the pacing was consistent. I think you said that like 5 minutes ago. I apologize.
Any more pluses or?
I thought that the special effects pretty damn good. There were some parts when the cities were rotating that I was like, that doesn't look tired. Especially in the very first scene where the ancient one is chasing the dudes down.
Yeah.
And she rotates, and then when she sort of like hops back onto the street, something didn't look right there. But really, I don't know if we're just there yet with technology to make that not weird.
The human form didn't have like a flow to it.
Yeah, they can't quite do that yet. Yeah. So I'm not really killing that. I thought that they did surprise me when she was sending him through all the different universes. That got pretty fucking trippy. And they were going to some really crazy fucking trippy.
Oh, the little hands part? Just
yeah, that was
fucking got me.
Right. But that just made me more disappointed that the rest of the movie was spent on rotating cities, which is what my big fear was. I know we talked about, we were all afraid they were going to spend 90% of this movie on a bunch of rotating buildings. And that was kind of the go-to.
Yeah.
Was the rotating buildings.
It's supposed to be the reality around you being moved and shifted.
I feel like we're talking about this wrong. Somebody else talk. I feel like I'm going to go through all my points for everything on movie, whereas we should pick a category and then I'll talk about that category.
Okay, so right now we're at pacing.
What'd you think about the pacing there, Mr. Fixit?
I actually quite enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Well,
it was fast.
You're not talking about the pacing now. You're talking about the movie.
No, it was paced very well. I mean, there was never a time during the movie, like you said, that I got bored or something dragged on. I mean, a few of the jokes fell flat. Besides that, I thought it was well paced.
Are we talking about the jokes? Or are we talking about the pacing?
Well, I was trying to transition this into another segment. Nah, pacing was fine. I liked it.
So then, do we want to talk about? Well, no, pacing.
Yeah, I'm the one who said that.
Oh, shit. God, sorry. This is my first time. Okay, so do you want to talk about acting performances now?
Well, let me go ahead and jump in.
Just
Please
let him.
I was trying to get you to help without me saying please help, but you didn't.
There's too many fingers in the dike already, man. Just let it go.
I was about to just freaking sabotage this whole fuck thing.
As you guys are aware, I couldn't wait for Civil War to come out. It's like, how much longer am I going to have to wait for fucking Civil War to come out? With Doctor Strange, from the first trailer, from the casting of
Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, I was kind of turned off. And so I've really been dreading this movie the entire time. When you were talking about, when are we going to see the movie? How are we going to get the scheduling down? I was like, fuck, I thought I had a couple more weeks before I had to deal with Doctor Strange. I was not tempted to go see it on Thursday or any bullshit like that. It's like, no, we'll just wait till Saturday. I don't really give a shit. And I was actually tired. I was afraid that I was going to start dozing off during this movie like I did during the second viewing of Avengers. Too damn tired and just not engaged enough. So I went in this movie pretty much gunning for it. And I was actually already doing mental notes of the problems I was having. They did not spend enough time setting him up as being a dick. I kept waiting for the scene where he was going to turn down giving aid to somebody because they didn't have the money for it.
Which they talk about later. But
for like, if you blink and you miss it, or you tune out for a second while he's fucking around with his text messaging while he's driving at a high rate of speed in the rain, you would totally miss that. But that's something that I really think you needed to drive home how bad he was. And they touch on it later on when he runs into Benjamin Bratt. Bratt mentions, oh yeah, I actually wanted to get surgery done by you, but you said that I didn't have enough of a chance and you wouldn't take a chance on messing up your reputation.
Oh no, he said I never even got past steps.
Yeah, but I'm conjoining his conversation with, I guess it was his secretary on the mobile drive, where he he's turning down cases because he doesn't they think it'll hurt his
They don't
success
excite
rate.
him.
Yeah, and also he didn't want to hurt his. He's got 100% success rate in all of his surgeries, so he doesn't want to take a chance on one that's an obvious loser to him. And Benjamin Bratt was such a loser that he didn't even get past the receptionist. So they kind of cover that base a little later on, but everything's always downplayed. It's like his dickishness mostly comes after he's already been injured. So you can go, oh yeah, but he was a brilliant surgeon and he's lost it all, and I understand why he's being such an asshole, and anybody in that situation would be an asshole. And I really needed him to be a total fucking dick from the very beginning of the movie. I also hated how much it was like Iron Man. It seemed like much of the first act of this movie was Iron Man redone, and Benedict Cumberbatch cannot deliver the zinger lines the way Robert Downey Jr. could. He could not be the charming, lovable asshole like Downey was, and so it just comes off really flat. It comes off like a cheap imitation of Downey Jr.
Super duper flat.
And then they've got Rachel McAdams in there right from the beginning, so you've got the love interest already there, and I did not need the love interest in this movie at all. I thought that McAdams did a good job throughout the movie. I think her performance was excellent. I thought she was well written. That character didn't need to be in the movie. She felt shoehorned in. It distracted. We needed to spend more time with rooting against Stephen Strange in the early parts of the movie, and instead you're empathizing with Rachel McAdams, and you've got all these cutesy moments where she's doing the whole Jane Fostery kind of stuff where it's like, oh, she's the human element of the story, so things don't get too fantastic. It was tacked on, but you could tell that was a meeting. You could tell that she was a note. There's not enough women in this movie. We need to have some kind of a love interest. Then you get to him getting to Nepal, and it's like, oh shit, this is Batman Begins. And he even kind of looks like Christian Bale, and of course they're both Brits playing Americans with accents that are a little dodgy. And so I'm like, fuck, man, this movie is just taking notes off of so many other movies. And so I'm having an easy time just like, man, this isn't working. But at the same time, I'm relieved because even though I can see the influence of shit like the Straczynski miniseries with the external fixation, they didn't do the fucking sister, which was, I know in a lot of the early drafts of the movie, he didn't have a sister that died when he was young, and that's what inspired him to be such a dick, but also made him the surgeon. They didn't give him any of that bullshit motivation. They didn't go full Matrix with the shit.
But there was still some...
There was a lot of Matrixy stuff in there, but they didn't go full on. It got real close early on there, especially when you first see the Ancient One fighting Mads Mikkelsen's character, which is the first scenes of the movie. It's like, fuck, this is going to be some Matrix shit, isn't it?
Yep.
When Tilda Swinton first turns up, as much as I love Tilda Swinton and almost anything else, this is the same kind of bullshit they did in Straczynski, where she's too modern and she's kind of cutesy and clever, and it just was bugging the shit out of me. And so
well, you're saying, like, why did the Ancient One have to be sarcastic?
Right. And then, of
like,
course, also they're all doing the energy weapon shit early on, especially in the earliest scenes of the movie. And it's like, fuck this. I looked over at you at the movie because we talked about this.
We talked about this.
This is going to be the fucking energy weapons, isn't it?
Stupid fucking energy weapons.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And then what happens is the Ancient One sends Doctor Strange on his trip, and the hands, and in particular those hands where they're all reaching around him, that's straight out of a Frank Brunner cover from the 1970s. I immediately recognized it. And then when the fingers of his hands started springing hands, and that whole theme where it makes sense that, of course, he's fixated on hands. He spent the last several years of his life trying to deal with this shit. And the trip was
Although they totally don't let you know how long he's been dealing with this shit.
He doesn't have gray hairs before the accident, and by the time he gets to Nepal, he's already got a streak going. But after that sequence, that's when I stopped being the hypercritical asshole. That's when I stopped looking for the flaws in the movies and started going, okay, I've seen enough here. I'm hoping that from here on it's going to be good. And it was. I think that this is a movie that I'm going to enjoy a lot more on rewatches because I won't be going into it as critical. I was giving it the flaws and the missteps, like all the fucking chop suey bullshit. I got so tired of the martial arts stuff, which I didn't feel belonged in a Doctor Strange movie. But all the weird, stupid mirror shit, the glass stuff, that got toned down after a while. There's a lot of that in the trailers, but there's not nearly as much of it in the movie. They do have some trippier imagery. I don't want to build up anybody's hopes if they're happening to be nutty enough to listen to this before actually seeing the movie. But there is enough trippy imagery where it's like, okay, this is the first movie, that's okay. And there's enough of the stuff from the early Lee Ditko material that it's like, okay, this is still a Doctor Strange movie. I still have major problems with it, but by the end of the movie, it had won me over. I was on its side. I did thoroughly enjoy it, and I'm looking forward to watching it more often. Even if over the course of the movie, it was already going up through the ranks of the Marvel movies. It started out, man, this shit's going to be worse than Thor, isn't it? And then by the end, it's already better than Guardians of the Galaxy, and then it started working its way up to the, not quite the upper echelon, but it's a solid middle echelon Marvel Cinematic Universe effort.
I agree with a lot of that. I was kind of expecting the energy weapons and the karate, so when I was seeing it, I was sort of rolling my eyes, but I was reasoning with myself during the movie, they have to have some sort of action part of it. They can't all just be casting spells all the time, because even in the Harry Potter movies, they were just shooting fucking lasers out of the sticks, which is essentially an energy fucking weapon. You're just shooting guns at each other, but using sticks. So even Harry Potter did not. They would throw the spells and shit at each other, which I kind of could have used a little more of that in this.
Yeah, a lot more of that, actually.
And he doesn't have to say a fucking spell, but like, they spent all that time drawing the light shit. What the fuck did any of that stuff ever do? It never actually did anything. Now, he could bring up the shields. She's saying, you don't need your hand, because he was like, oh, I can't use my hands to do that. What do they call the things again? The things.
I don't even remember them. Sigils or something? Oh, are you talking about the sling ring?
The sling ring.
Well, the sling ring is different than
When
that,
he can't
though.
get the sling ring to work, and he's like,
We should probably explain what the fuck a sling ring is, though. We haven't just touched on that. A sling ring is basically like brass knuckles, but only on two of fingers, and it's a little rectangle. And what it allows you to do is you would draw a circle with one hand in the air, and it would start to shoot fireworks like a pinwheel, and you would teleport to another place.
Right.
And it's a physical place somewhere on Earth.
Now, let me ask you real quick, Frank. I remember your big thing was, they're just going to teleport everywhere.
There's a lot of fucking teleporting.
But they had, I like the astral.
Because of all the teleporting, I was like, if they're teleporting, then why do they need the astral projection? And going onto the astral plane, which for some reason they felt the need to call it astral dimension.
Wait, and I did want to say that I think she calls it plane at some
Yeah.
point.
Okay, but she also calls it dimension.
She also uses multiverse a lot, which I thought was funny. One thing I want to say is that none, and this was a problem in all these magic / comic movies, but it seemed like really big time in this one, was that it's something like that. If these guys can teleport anywhere, there's no build up there should be no suspense. How are they like, we've got to hurry up and get to Hong Kong because they blew up London? Well, if they can teleport, they can walk out of London and be in Hong Kong.
The only hesitation was them arguing with each other about whether or not they wanted to save the world or not, or if they were so heartbroken by various turns of events that they didn't want to fight anymore.
Right. Like, if
it does kill some suspense because, you're just there.
Well,
and there's no real cost to it.
It should, but then they're trying to, they do build the suspense, like Doctor Strange fighting, what's his name, Madsen.
Yeah, I'm not going to try to, it's a very minor character from 90s Doctor Strange comics. He was actually part of that 1993 annuals where they introduced a new character with trading cards.
DC Bloodline.
No, they didn't have the trading cards bound in on that. That was Marvel's ripoff Bloodlines. But that's where that character came from. That's where the name.
Blood. Anyway, I don't care where he came from.
But no, the point is, I'm not going to make a point of remembering this guy's name because it's fucking Mads Mikkelsen. So
right. I called him Madsen on X.
And by the way, can we also go ahead and acknowledge that this continues Marvel's streaks of weak fucking villains in their movies and wasting talented actors on villainous roles? That guy is nothing. Fucking eye makeup does more acting than he does.
But while Doctor Strange is like by himself fighting that guy and his two cronies, why couldn't any of the other guys just come through?
Sling ring.
I don't understand if the Ancient One can see all this shit. Where is the Ancient One? Like, I don't understand. You can't.
We already know how many soldiers Mads Mikkelsen has, and we saw the students at Nepal.
There's tons of them.
So there's a whole bunch of those students. So you just divide those guys up between the 3 points, and you have them fight, or at least hold ground until you show up and kick everybody's ass. It was one of those things like a lot of people have trouble with magic because there's no rules.
Right.
I could see in this movie where they were trying to counter that through the martial arts and through like having roughly equal numbers going up against each other.
The sling ring, you have to build open the portal,
right.
and you have to physically jump through.
And then they make a big point too. You have to have the sling ring to teleport. They don't have it's not magic they have inherent within them. You have to have the actual devices.
I think they fucked up because Mads Mikkelsen takes Doctor Strange's sling ring to get out of that mirrorverse, and then later on, Doctor Strange just got one again.
Well, because there's more than one. There's not there's a bunch of them. Which is another problem too.
No, to get out of the mirror world himself, he does it.
Right.
But he never.
By the way,
Mads Mikkelsen took the other day. There must have been a scene where he took Bear Mordos or something, and they cut it out because he just gets another one.
I lost track after a while. I didn't like the sling rings.
Because I thought they were going to be stuck in there.
Yeah.
Because he stole his sling ring, and instead he just sling rings out.
Yeah, and there's another problem too. Just involving for starters, it's called a sling ring, which is lame.
Super dumb.
Second, it's not a good looking ring. Third, I kept getting flashbacks to Green Lantern between the legions of magic students, and everybody's got a ring, and they only can teleport with the ring. That was not something I needed in this movie.
It's got to be something else.
Even when the Ancient One goes into her whole explanation about how the different dimensions work and how they've got a magical shield over the Earth protects it from invaders from other dimensions. Shit, it's like, this is Green Lantern shit. This does not feel like Doctor Strange in this moment. I got past that, but I was getting major, and not just Green Lantern. I was getting flashbacks specifically to Ryan Reynolds. Am I wrong?
I never saw
that. You never saw the Green Lantern movie?
No, I did, but I didn't get that vibe.
The exposition, where it's like, okay, let's take 5 minutes and do heavy exposition about what the nature of our sorcerers are and why you have to have this army of ring bearers to guard the Earth with magical shields. That was some Green Lantern shit there.
But the actual ring thing, I think that it is familiar to me in another way. I feel there's some movie that we're forgetting about where they did something similar. That's
Jumper?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. Maybe it'll come to me and come to somebody. Leave a coblet of the coblet boards.
I got a quick question. But was I the only one that noticed whenever he was going through the cases while he was driving? Was one of those Rhodey?
No, I think
because he said he was in an armor.
Was Rhodey too.
He said he was in armor and he had some kind of spinal damage.
Okay, so maybe it was Rhodey. The one that first.
Because you looked at me, you're like, oh, that's
I said Iron Man 2
and
I was thinking,
no, that sounds more like.
Wasn't there a guy when Justin Hammer was trying out the different Iron Man suits where it spins him around and it breaks the guy's back?
Yeah, but
that was the one. Well, we don't know if it killed him, but
so you're saying this happened? So Strange happened similar to when when Iron Man 2 happened, closer.
Well, because
even though the Avenger building is built in.
Actually, I would like it if that were the case. That would be nice because then they would explain why Doctor Strange was mentioned in Winter Soldier. Because just being a surgeon isn't a reason to kill the guy off earlier on.
Right. So that's what.
Because I thought it sounded like Rhodey because he was like an experimental.
Yeah,
But
it was too specific. It was too involved with like. Didn't they even say his rank and everything?
I think so.
So I'm pretty sure we'll go to one of those websites and it'll be like Easter egg. We're talking about Rhodey. So I don't.
Like I told you, I love the film, so I'm not gonna bash on it.
Well, you haven't told it. You just said right now you love. You just said something like, "Well, I already said I love the film," but you have not said you love it.
Yeah, you've said you've liked. I've
enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I think I enjoyed it. Okay.
Well, the one thing I wanted to mention too, because you were talking about the astral projection,
Yeah.
is I was afraid that there wouldn't be a use for that in the movie because they're teleporting everywhere, and I was wrong because there's a very long several sequences involving astral projection that are key, and since that's such a trademark power of Doctor Strange, that's like I don't know if I would say it's his bullets and bracelets, but that's such a key power of his that for them to not have a use for it, for them to not incorporate it in the movie, I'd have been pretty put off. And they do take their time before they really get to that part where you start seeing the astral projection. But once they do, it's like, okay, he's going to be doing this a lot, and he's got valid reason for doing it. So totally worked, totally made sense, and was a very Doctor Strange thing you do.
I'm not a huge Doctor Strange fan. I have very little readings of him. I know who he is through games, comics.
Oh yeah, you didn't do that when we did the two-parter. No, you were here. You did the origin with us though, didn't you?
I don't know. I don't remember doing. No,
you didn't do the origin. That was all you and me.
Yeah.
So what have you read of Doctor Strange?
The Oath. I borrowed from you,
which is good.
I had
if that's one of the only things you've read, that's a pretty good thing to have read.
I had picked up some a box of comics one time, and there was some nice, really early stuff.
How early though? Was it like Ditko or Gene Colan or
maybe?
Was it like dark and moody, or was it more?
Well, there was a lot of fantastic travel. Like he'd be jumping through doorways, and you'd see all these weird fucking mouths with teeth and all kinds of weird shit all around him.
That might actually be Bruner. Did the art have that kind of a Neil Adamsy, like heavily detailed look to it, or was it more cartoony?
It wasn't cartoony.
Okay,
yeah.
So maybe Bruner or Gene Colan.
I think it was like 5 issues that were in there, and so I was like, I've never read Strange. Let me give it a try, and I actually enjoyed it. I like the fact that Wong wasn't his manservant. I like the fact that he was kind of a drill sergeant because I thought Wong was always kind of a cool character, even from the cartoons that I saw. You know, he was always the one running around with luggage, Doctor Strange's luggage, or cleaning off his shoulders.
He's a stereotypical Asian manservant shit, which is something that's definitely a part of Doctor Strange's baggage. No pun intended.
The acting was the only thing. I liked the love interest. I think it worked for him. He needed something to ground him.
She gave a good performance.
Well, he needed something to ground him because he was going to go into the world of Fantastic, and he needed something to bring him back, and you needed someone to play off of that where she has no dealings with. She's your Muggle, whatever they call him in fucking Harry Potter.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I'm afraid.
So that's what I kind of like that. You know me, I'm not a big magic guy, so I enjoyed that part. You know, I hate time travel.
Yeah,
absolutely. Except for Back to the Future, I always hate when they use time travel to explain or fix problems. And in this movie, they actually did it in a way that I thought was funny. I mean, granted, they harked back to Groundhog Day, which I thought was kind of cute, where they groundhog the villain to death. But I like the fact, like, especially when they're doing that fight and everything's going in reverse. I really like that.
I really, really love that.
That fucking blew. Like they're literally getting stuck in things. Like the girl that gets stuck in the fish tank.
You're talking the battle at the end of the movie.
Yes.
Huh?
No, it's just like, of course, we're going to go directly to the movie.
Well, no, I'm just talking about the scenes that
I already did the recap.
Yeah, I mean, to me, those were the scenes that really stood out. The acting was pretty solid. I mean, I didn't think it was fantastic. I really didn't like the ancient one.
There was one really great actor in this movie. I thought Chiwetel Ejiofor was awesome in this movie.
I think that he was just okay in this movie.
Why do you think that?
When did he really? I didn't really.
Honestly,
I don't think he had a scene that really let him shine in it.
If you saw Serenity,
he wasn't in it enough. I can definitely guarantee that.
If you watched Serenity, he pretty much played the same character in Serenity.
That's what I'm saying. I thought he was going to be in it a lot more. Like I thought it was going to be almost a buddy movie with Strange and him, within him turning coat at some point in the future, right? Instead, I didn't feel like instead Strange spent most of the time on his own studying and teaching himself this stuff. You know what I mean?
I do wish we'd seen more of him, and I wish that he'd been more involved with Doctor Strange's education, because I kept waiting for him to do a heel turn in the movie, and then he didn't, and that was actually one of the things that made me happy, because I spent a lot of the early part of the movie irritated by the ways in which they deviated from the comics, or things that they didn't develop enough from the comics. And the great thing about Mordo in this movie is that he's a much better developed character in the movie than he ever was in the comics.
True.
Mordo was always the guy who he was the traitor in the very first. Well, not the very first. He was the villain in the very first Doctor Strange story.
Yeah, we did it. We did a podcast.
He started out as a villain, and then in the origin, you find out why he's a villain, because he's the guy who betrayed the Ancient One. And so he's always been the guy who fights Doctor Strange because he's the guy who fights Doctor Strange. That's been it. And so this movie, they take the time to show, no, Mordo is a true believer. He is absolutely a follower. He's a good person. He believes that what what they're doing is right, and he is, or at least his principles are betrayed by the Ancient One, who
Which I loved.
which is another great thing. Yes.
He did the same character in Serenity.
And you got a good point there. I fucking forgot that. That's
I tried to say that 5 minutes ago, but you fucking overtalk me every time. But when I was watching it, I'm like, he has the sword on his back. He did that in Serenity. Wait a minute, he's following the path.
He's the true believer.
Yeah, the true believer. And then at the end, his belief is broken and he's lost. And I'm like, oh my god, it's the same fucking character. So that didn't bother me so much, but it was weird that I caught onto it so quickly in the movie where he didn't really deviate from that.
Well, here's the way in which, though, that they bettered Serenity, though, is that, like as you said, he is the true believer, but in Serenity, you never really get to see him react to the realization that his belief system is fractured, that what he's been following this whole time has been wrong. In this movie, you see he has an emotional breakdown. That's part of why he's not sure if he's going to go and protect the Sanctum at the end, because he's not sure that the path that the Ancient One has laid out for him is correct. Since the Ancient One, it turns out, is ancient specifically because she's been drawing energy from the Dark Dimension and from the Dark Lord Dormammu.
And that has nothing to do in the books, right?
That's absolutely brand new to my knowledge.
I like that.
And again,
Loved the twist.
yes,
Yeah.
it was great. It made perfect sense. And the thing is too, is the whole time once they set up, because I'm waiting for Mordo to turn evil. So my assumption is that Mads Mikkelsen knows that Mordo is evil and that he's betrayed the Ancient One because he can't tell the Ancient One that Mordo's the real villain. And I thought they were going to do this whole thing where he's been manipulating everybody the whole time. It's like,
right.
No, Mordo is actually a good guy.
Yeah.
And Ancient One is the one who's doing unethical stuff in order to protect the Earth and has to justify that and doesn't get the chance to because she gets killed.
Mm-hmm.
And so Mordo's left, like, his entire world's been blown apart. The entire world itself is about to be blown apart. So it makes total sense that he would break down. And he is. He does a great job of not being a little whiny bitch, not being overly theatrical, but you can hear it in his voice that he just doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, and he doesn't know how he.
Yeah, actually, you've kind of humanized him for me. I didn't think about it in that term.
We never got that in Serenity, but we get it in this movie, and it's almost like he got to play that scene that he never got to do as that earlier character.
Now, real quick. Now, when Hannibal and them get sucked into the other universe, they do turn into the mindless ones, right? Because I saw them with one eye, and they're spinning, and they were turning kind of
actually
gray,
the mindless ones have no eyes.
I thought, yeah, they have like one eye, don't they? I could swear.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Dude, you don't know about the mindless? If I know nothing of Doctor Strange, I know about the mindless ones where they're like this mob of creatures that are sent, and Strange is always trying to hold them back, and they just basically attack, and they have no mind. They're what? The mindless ones, right?
Yeah.
That's their name?
Yeah. What's funny
They're
is
like puppets.
Mac likes the thing where you have beings that you put up against, to show how powerful they are, like the Hulk. If you can go toe-to-toe with the Hulk, then you're one of the strongest and most powerful people. And the mindless ones are like the Hulks of Doctor Strange's world.
Mm-hmm.
When the mindless ones show up, it's like, oh shit,
Shit's
things got
gonna get
real
Yeah.
because Doctor Strange can't magic these fuckers away. And actually, Dormammu, I'm trying to learn, it's sort of like Thanos versus Thanos.
Yes.
I'm trying to relearn decades of comic fandom based on what I'm being told is the true pronunciation. But Dormammu, part of what allowed him to conquer the Dark Dimension was he's the one who managed to finally corral the mindless ones.
And it's just like a mob, dude.
Yeah.
He just throws them at you, and they just keep coming at you. You do whatever you got to, you just can't stop them. And there's a scene where they're flipping around, and they're turning purple, and they have one eye. I saw their eye kind of glowing. I'm like, oh, cool. They're going to be the mindless ones.
Well, what threw me off is I'm used to them shooting their
laser
energy beams, but they've got like Cyclops visors. So it's like a long slit. So I'm trying to picture a Cyclopean eye. It's like, they don't have an eye. And I'll go, it looks like, oh yeah, they do have the slit. That's where the energy comes from.
I just franked them.
You did. You got me on that one. Yeah.
You just got fixed. You
I
just
got fixed.
That sounds so wrong.
I'm
Dude. You're never going to have
sore.
kids.
I'm sitting on ice bags right now. And by the way, God willing.
Creases.
But
I did not catch that, by the way.
What?
And when we were just looking up the mindless ones to show Fixit, there's something.
Mac. He's Fixit.
Sorry, sorry.
one swing 6 inches.
I looked
the
on my
other-
phone 5 minutes ago, but thanks for bringing it up on your computer.
Right. But they also mentioned on one of the articles Easter egg. Were those the mindless ones? So I didn't catch that. So
Oh yeah. Well, see, I told you when we went into this movie, one of my big things
they were
was
so skinny.
I want to catch as many of the Easter eggs because I knew they were going to fucking fill this movie full of them. Because if there's any movie that you can throw lots of weird Easter eggs into, it's going to be a Doctor Strange movie.
Yeah, I was looking around when he was in the.
I mean, when the
was it
buildings were all
London?
collapsing, and you see the Avengers building in the back. Like I
didn't see that.
You didn't? Yeah,
No.
the Avengers building was in the back, which I thought was kind of cool.
When he was at the London Sanctum, going through all the artifacts, I was trying to find something in there, but I didn't see it.
like something from Dark World or something.
Yeah.
Well, it just yeah.
Except for the cape, obviously.
There probably was one, but
Why
it was
not?
the Dark World, and we haven't watched that
And
movie since
the
it came
cape-
out. So
Let me ask you this, Frank. Does the cape do that stuff in the comic?
The cape isn't as humanized.
It's Groot in this movie. The
No,
cape,
I
the
thought
cape
it thought
it is the group of the
Spawn.
movie.
I thought Spawn when I was
Well, no,
watching
no.
it because it grabs things, it throws things, it attacks. The chains attack people. So I was thinking, did they get this from Spawn or did Spawn get it from Strange? So I was going to ask you as soon as it ended,
Yeah.
but then we weren't talking.
The cloak of levitation does levitate on its own. It does have some, not sentience, but it does have some independent capacity, but it's never been that involved in things. And usually it is prompted by mental commands from Doctor Strange. It's not working on its own, or especially not working counter to Strange's intentions as it does in this movie. And it was very Spawn-like. And that's it's more of a Spawn type thing. So I think you're right on both counts. I think that they did take elements from Spawn, but it's also true to the comics to enough of a degree that I don't mind if they went a little step further with it. I especially loved, there's a scene where they're fighting in the New York Sanctum, and he's trying to go for that battle axe. And when I saw that, my eyes just rolled so much. I got dizzy because that's the shit they're doing in the comics now. He's like a warrior mage and shit. And that's exactly the kind of shit I got no fucking time with Doctor Strange. I'm already having trouble with the karate shit, which mostly came out of the late 80s, early 90s. I think Roy Thomas was the one who started putting that in. It's like, Doctor Strange isn't just a mystic. He also knows the martial arts because he had to train his body as well as his mind. Just like, fuck off with that shit. But okay, so when he's going for the battle axe, I'm like, God damn it, they're doing the Jason Aaron shit. And I love the cape stops him. And doesn't just stop him, he stops the shit out of
And
Doctor
he's like
Strange.
running in place.
And then not only that, but he goes and he grabs a device that captures the
I
main
thought that was
villain.
fucking awesome.
And that shit, it's not exactly out of the comics, but it's very, very similar to something that from one of the early comics, the Ditko books.
Really?
So it's almost like the movie metatextually rejects the current Jason Aaron interpretation of the character in favor of Ditko. And so even if that wasn't intentional, I had to applaud it, and it made me very happy that they went that
I just
way.
love the way that Hannibal walked backwards like robot style. And
Yeah,
got
that was
I was
cool,
like,
too.
oh, that was neat.
Oh yeah, when he was getting taken over by
by that armor.
and he was like,
Because at first, honestly, I thought that was going to be, what is that, the Odin's keeper?
Oh, the Destroyer?
Destroyer. I was like, is that Destroyer armor? Or like, is he going to put on the gauntlets and start punching people? I didn't know what that was.
There's an early story, I think it takes place within the Dark Dimension, that features a character who's been imprisoned in a device very similar to that. And it was a story that burned into my brain because it creeped the hell out of me. When I was a kid reading that story, it was just too intense for me at that time because of how Ditko drew it. Where Strange is basically manipulated by a guy in that device, and he ends up swapping places with the guy and being trapped himself and having to figure out how to get out of that device. And I absolutely believe that was a callback, and it made me happy because it showed that they had done the research, which I knew Derrickson had done.
Oh, yeah,
but it showed in the movie. And
Dude,
it
even
made
the
me-
music.
I loved the harpsichord.
Yeah.
It was like cowbell. I need more harpsichord in these movies. Because every time the harpsichord came on, I'm like, that is perfect. Kind of where
That's
it's
so
not-
strange,
it's-
yeah.
It's old, but kind of, I don't know. I was
classic and
Golden
classy.
Brown was playing through my
Yeah.
head, even though that's not the harpsichord, but that's what.
Yeah.
But I love that. But
Well, see, here's the thing. Before the movie, one of the trailers was the Guardians of the Galaxy teaser, which does not tease me at all. I'm just not into what I'm seeing so far. And I'm not saying it won't be good. It's just, there's not enough there. But my main issue is hearing Blue Suede again. It's like, you need to get a new fucking song. I'm tired of Uma Shaka, Uma Shaka.
You're the only one.
But also, Guardians is a movie that's so defined by obvious, on-the-nose, crowd-pleasing musical cues. And I was watching the credits, and there are 4 songs in this movie. And again, that was one thing I thought it was going to be an issue was early on, Doctor Strange is in the operating room, listening to music, and they're like, guess the music, guess the artist.
I thought
and
the
I'm like,
exact same
fuck,
thing.
they're going to be doing this shit to us throughout the movie. And it's like, no, there's 4, actually, I think there's only 3 sourced songs in
they
the entire
changed gears
movie.
on you, huh?
And then the rest of it's instrumental, and it ought to be.
And I thought it worked, too. I
And
thought
it's
it was
almost
good,
like, it's almost like the first part of the movie was them trying to be a Marvel movie or trying to be like a half-ass Marvel movie, and then rejecting that and trying to be something different. And I appreciated that.
Let's say in the group of movies that have come out, it definitely felt different than the rest of them.
Well, again, that first act of the movie is so trying to be the first Iron Man that he was bugging the shit out of
It's
me.
your origin story.
Well, but it's given short shrift to the origin, and it's given my feelings about the origin that have been well covered on this podcast. That pisses me off. But the fact that they dispensed with that, and then they started telling an interesting, newer story that went beyond the origins, I was cool with it by the time they were done with it, and I do think it went its own way.
Okay, so the jokes, some of them felt really bad. The one where the cape
So here's the
strokes
deal.
his face.
Here's the thing with the jokes.
Oh.
Here's the thing with the jokes.
That was so bad.
That got Paquita was very
Really?
That got.
I thought I heard people.
I heard her laugh from my end.
Right? I thought I heard people groan like, oh.
No, I heard people laugh at
Really?
that. Yeah.
Maybe that was just me groaning.
It was a little
really
overly
bad.
cutesy. I hope they don't. I thought it was
too
fun.
Groot. The Beyonce
It was
joke?
too Groot. I could have done without the Beyonce. Again, Benedict Cumberbatch does not have a good enough delivery to pull off the jokes he's trying to do. It all
But I think
sounds
they
like
knew
warmed
that.
over Robert Downey Jr. And I think they dialed it down.
No, but I think they knew that because even Wong was like not laughing at his jokes. And
Yeah.
he's like, no, and it's like, oh.
Yeah, but the humorless Asian,
But then-
a backup guy.
No, that's not what
a
they're.
little
No, I
tiresome.
think they were. I think he. To me, when I was watching, it was like they're trying to play Tony. If Tony, it was a misstep every joke.
Okay.
And And when him being a miss joke was almost funny and charming in its own manner, where it's kind of like, oh, okay, that's kind of cute. Because with Tony, it's like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
It's like having to be with Mac here for like 2 hours. After a while, you're just like, too much.
No, but
Shoot me, please. But him, his kind of flat.
Thank you.
I thought, after a while, I was a little, I won't like, I was a little charmed by it. I'm like, okay, his jokes aren't landing. It's kind of funny in that awkward way. Because he did play up the awkwardness, like, so no. And then I would think the joke's over and he would throw in another little like goofy joke. I'm like,
Eminem.
yeah, like he's still swinging for the fence. And I'm like, okay, man, that's kind of charming.
The thing too that you mentioned is in the Iron Man movies, it's very clear that everybody around Tony Stark is very entertained by him. Even
In
Rhodey,
awe.
when he's trying to be, chill out, Tony, you need to stop this shit. He gets one over and they're all drinking and watching strippers. He just you can't help it.
Stripper pulling a plane.
And what you make a good point. Even though Doctor Strange is making jokes for a decent amount of the movie, not tons, like maybe 5% of the movie, but nobody's actually laughing at them. And I think you might be right. I think he might be making jokes that are amusing him, and nobody else is getting it. And so that might be. Yeah, I think you're on.
I think that's the charm factor because that's kind of like
Because that's what I'm saying. Nobody laughs the whole movie until the last one where he kind of makes a joke not expecting anyone to laugh and then Wong cracking up.
I didn't even think that was a joke. I think he was laughing at the fate of Mads Mikkelsen's character and how appropriate it was.
I think he finally kind of gave him like, yeah, you're a funny fucker. Yeah, you're kind of funny. It's like I wasn't gonna laugh because I had to hold you down, but
And
now
Strange is looking at him like surprised, like, oh, that's the one you laughed at, right? Like,
now my only fear was like there was some really deep thought conversations in this movie, which as I was watching, I played back a lot of the other Marvel movies. Don't have a lot of the deep thought conversations like who are we in the universe, what
the nature of existence.
Yeah, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking like I'm looking around and there's a lot of kids and I'm like a lot of these kids are probably just sitting there like why do they still do talky? Why not more punchy? Too much talky. So that was my only concern.
I would have liked them to go deeper into that, but I just don't think. I think they had.
There wasn't room.
I think they had to keep that pace.
Well, no, you're right. They trimmed all the fat off this movie. There was no fat on this movie.
But I do feel like there should have been a scene where Strange has more of a revelation. I mean, I guess he kind of did, where she's talking about his hands. You know what I mean? There was a little moment there where I think he kind of had the
only thing I felt that they missed out on is when he was going through those portals. I would have loved even quick flashes of all the galactic characters of the Marvel universe.
Well, they did make drop a reference. What was the
Living Tribunal?
The Living Tribunal.
Oh yeah, I caught that one too. But I would have loved like maybe Infinity, Lord Chaos, and like not even, you don't even have to show him, just kind of glimpses of him. And I would have been like, that's cool. Like he's going through. He's maybe the Galactus we should have had in the background.
I actually I'm kind of relieved they didn't go there though.
Really?
As it was, there was too much reference to the Infinity Stones. I didn't.
Well,
really
they dropped one reference.
I know, it's a major
wasn't
fucking
just
reference
dropped.
though.
It wasn't just dropped. He's like, hey, and he like put his face on. How about this Infinity Stone, buddy? And it's like,
oh, what's an Infinity Stone?
well, let me. You don't know what Infinity Stones are?
Well, and honestly,
he's basically winking at the crowd.
Oh, yeah.
I was waiting at one scene in the movie where he was going to lose the amulet because I was like, okay, well, we know that's the Time Stone. So
Yeah, I was actually disappointed they made it the Eye of Agamotto too, because again, that's a pretty key element of Doctor Strange. And in the earlier stories, he had a different amulet. He eventually graduates to the Eye of Agamotto. It's a thing that he wins
Graduates.
over time. Yeah, just like with the cape, he had a blue cape when he first got started, and later on, he gets the Cloak of Levitation. So you see him leveling up, which is something you didn't see in comics very often, but it's an important part of Doctor Strange's story, and he kind of levels all the way up pretty early on in this movie. Although they do show enough of his, they do show enough of his journey, so I don't feel like it was a cheat. But there's some stuff that could have waited until a little later in the movie, potentially. But no, they did a good enough job. I don't want to complain about that. I don't want to nitpick it. I just wanted the Eye of Agamotto to not have anything to do with the fucking Infinity Gems, and I'm tired. The thing though is that if you look at the Infinity Gauntlet, one of the big stumbling points of that is that you then have Warlock the Infinity Watch, where he gives all of his buddies Infinity Stones. They're like a super team based on the most powerful objects in all of creation. It's easier for me to go, oh wait, no, Doctor Strange is going to get his Infinity Stone back when it's all said and done, and he's going to continue to be the keeper of that, and so it's not going to go to Pip the fucking Troll and try to turn that into something that it's not.
Take that back.
It's bugging me, but now I'm realizing that I always assumed at some point the Vision was going to lose his Infinity.
Oh yeah,
Stone.
they are. Yeah,
and clearly that's not going to happen because I don't think you can take the Eye of Agamotto away from Doctor Strange. I also am not a huge fan of the design of it. I wish it had been a little bit closer to the comics.
Yeah, it was alright.
It was okay, but it was a little too much like an eye where I like the more vague, like it's a circle and then there's an eye that comes out of that, and I don't know. It could have been a cooler design.
Like the Eye of Thundara.
Yeah, too much of a watch work.
Yeah,
and the whole movie has too much of that watch imagery to it. But
I think that was on purpose though.
Because I think that somebody must have kept building those Inception CGI files, and they just kind of built on that.
Well, because they talk about time manipulation.
Yeah.
There's the Ancient One is trying, basically she keeps prolonging her life.
Yeah.
Mads Mikkelsen's
trying to get immortality and not be
immortality,
death.
the watch watch breaks.
Yeah.
he turns.
There's a
I mean,
lot of-
there's
yeah,
a-
but-
time was the theme.
Well, what did y'all-
Yeah, but that's just it. It feels like that's them writing to the next Avengers movie. It's not, Doctor Strange isn't about time.
Well, so the Eye Agamotto wasn't time. Wasn't
No,
time,
no.
Time,
The Eye
time
of
wasn't
Agamotto
just-
has nothing to do with time
No,
in the
please
comics.
listen to me. I'm not. Please listen. I'm saying of the Infinity Stones.
Yeah, it's the
wasn't
time
supposed
stone.
to- There was a
gem.
time gem, right?
Yeah, that's
so
it.
That's got to be it.
Yeah, that's what
No,
I'm saying.
that's
They
what it
wrote
is.
to that specifically. Because let's face it, most of the insertions of the Infinity Stones in these
No,
movies.
I want to correct you. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, well,
No, that's what I'm saying.
I was going to say that too, though. I was
well-
thinking it in the fucking theater. Thank you very
well.
much. Is that you look at something like Thor: The Dark World and that shit?
Ether.
Yeah, and what the fuck was that shit? And most of these movies, it's like you couldn't tell what stone this person has. Like, what stone does Vision have again?
mind.
I'm assuming
Is
it's
the mind?
which
Yeah,
was.
but he doesn't
remember,
have
'cause they
tele-
showed two brains.
Yeah, but he doesn't have telepathy or anything like that. So, and if he did have it, then he'd be Martian Manhunter. So it's like, why does he have that jump?
because
you know?
he's Adam Warlock.
Well, because it gave him his
it's-
soul.
Well, then he could have been the
Wait,
soul
is it the
gem.
mind or the soul gem?
I think it is the mind gem, but he should have the soul gem
gem.
since it's all about him having
Well,
being
could it be
imbued
the
with a
soul gem?
soul. But I think they specifically said it was the mind gem though.
Now it was.
okay.
Because in the whole thing
the
is
cube
that-
is which one? That's what is the cube?
I don't know. That's the whole point. Is we don't know what the
Yeah,
fuck these
I
are.
know. Well,
This is
okay,
the
wait.
only movie where they made a point.
Macho Man has the Slim Jim.
Yeah.
No, that's the Kool-Aid Man.
A good chunk of this movie is about making sure that we know that it's the time gem that he has. And Doctor Strange isn't really about time travel and shit. And the fact that he's going to probably have a time gem in the next movie because he'll probably continue to have that particular gem as part of the Eye of Agamotto. This is something we'll probably have to deal with again.
Well, let me ask you.
That's one thing that bugs me is that they're still trying to scientificize the magic.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, Scarlet Witch has more convincing magical hand gestures than any of the people in this movie. And she's the one who's supposed to be a mutant instead of or an Inhuman or whatever the fuck they're going to say that she is.
Wait, who?
The Scarlet Witch.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah,
my bad.
she's the one who's not supposed to have actual magic, but her handwork is way better than
No,
anybody
but
in
then
this
she
movie.
had that really weird emo, like twisting body and
Yeah,
Marilyn
no,
Manson.
I
and
believe
other
that
beautiful
she's
people.
casting spells though, where these other guys they're just doing little doodle thingies. They're working a stylus in front of us. It feels like they've got the thing from Minority Report with
Oh,
the touch
strings,
screen
yeah.
stuff. That's what it looks like in this movie.
Now, did it bother you when they did the whole Groundhog Day ending?
No, because they'd already set the time stuff up enough.
But I actually thought it was pretty cool, where they're just showing him get
Yeah.
murdered and murdered and
Yeah,
murdered and
and
murdered.
that was pretty cool. I like that, and this is something that again, when you're talking about how they got into somewhat of existential, the purpose of life and all that kind of stuff, the fact that they even tried, and the fact that what they did say had value and is something that could enlighten a younger mind, I'm very happy that they had that. I love that Doctor Strange gets his powers through education, and they really enforced it in the movie.
What did you
he
do?
Studied and he practiced
Practiced.
until he got good enough to actually work magic. That's a wonderful message to tell children, and it's a way of making the magic relevant to society, relevant to the influential minds that are going to watch this, and so many kids watch these movies. So I love that they did that, and I love that the final resolution isn't about I was stronger, had more endurance, I had more power. It's like, no, I tricked the guy who was giving me trouble. I used
It wasn't.
yeah.
It wasn't like close your eyes and believe, and now you have magic. It
Yeah.
was. Well, yeah. This
No,
is.
I have
I mean,
a, pl-
you
I have
saw
a
him
fucking
reading.
plan is what I have.
She was like, "What? How'd you become the greatest neurosurgeon in the world?" He's like, "Oh, I studied my freaking ass off." She's like, "Welp,
Yeah.
here's some books."
And then, of course, they do the montage of him studying books.
And I
reading
love
books.
too, especially in this modern age,
He's all reading.
we're going to watch you train by reading books and reading some more books and then stealing books that people don't want you to have. But it was done so well that I'm happy
Yeah.
about it. And I kind of love seeing a physical library used again, which is something you don't see nearly as much anymore.
He has a tablet. He's like,
Yeah. And I love too, they even make a point of dismissing Wikipedia at the beginning of the movie. He had to go back to the real shit, the tomes. He had to turn pages. The nice subtle diss to the internet age of education.
Yeah, in your face, internet age.
interweb.
But even though I hated the kung fu, the fact the movie is resolved by mind power, by thought, and by planning, and by study and education, that makes the movie important for children, and I'm glad for that, because we need to remember that part of these movies. It can't just be about who kicks whose ass.
So I'm assuming you really, really did like the.
Well, since we're
I was shocked.
Well, since we're
'cause
talking about the
honestly-
end, I thought that the
reverse
if I
battle?
could turn back time.
Oh, you know that's gonna be in there.
If when he starts turning back time and everything,
Right, do the sound.
And everything's going reverse, and like the cars are coming backwards, and even that car that was wrecked and had ejected the guy out.
Yeah,
the
oh, yeah, the
windshield,
woman.
and then he or she, I don't know who it was, comes back through the windshield into the car, and the car reverses and stuff. I freaking loved it, but they're moving forward in time.
Yeah.
While everything's going.
Well, I love the fact too, like whenever Hannibal and them they're going reverse, and all of a sudden you see them like pulling away from it.
Yeah, they're trying
and
to
they
fight
spin
it off.
around.
Yeah, and they finally break its
Yeah.
influence over them.
And I
That
was like,
cool.
I remember that scene. I'm not gonna lie, I sat there in a little bit of awe. I was like, whoa, that's such a cool idea where everything's everything's going backwards because I hate time travel stuff, but everything's going backwards and they're fighting forward and they're using the things around them to battle. So if you throw this chicken in the tank, all of a sudden the tank's going to fill up with water and fish and she's trapped in the tank, or he kicks her on this thing knowing that it's going to build up and push her away. I was like, oh, that's so cool idea.
Yeah, what was great too is even though there's obvious influence from Matrix and Inception, a lot of the action sequences in this, what was cool is they then went the third step. They weren't just, okay, we're just going to do the same shit as these other movies. They always found a way of going a little bit further with it. Like I loved when the city street just falls away and there's nothing there but that little patch of street and then like two little circles. I love that Strange and Mortal are like falling through space, because just when they start to have a firm footing, the city itself changes and they're falling again. And so it's not that I enjoyed that aspect, the whole city shaping thing. It's that they finally found a way of overcoming the obvious derivation there and finding a new spin on it and being inventive. Just like the whole chop sake shit. I was getting sick of it, but there's very little of that at the end of the movie. It's all about the novelty of the time going backwards and then the people fighting against that and then still getting caught up in it, especially the chick in the fish tank was awesome. So they took it a step further. They found a way of taking something that we've kind of gotten used to and then finding novelty in it by pushing the boundaries that much further out. So
I think this movie was made for 3D.
I'm going to go back and see it in 3D.
Yeah, I'm going back to see 3D.
Too.
If there's any greater congratulation I can give to the movie, like for instance, one of my big hurdles is Guardians of the Galaxy. I saw that the one time and I never bothered to go see it again in the theater. I'm going to make a point of seeing this again in the theater, and I want to see it in 3D.
Yeah,
not just because I want to see how awesome the effects look in 3D, but because I enjoyed the movie enough to where that's just an added bonus to me getting to see the movie again. And
I just want to see what it looks like with that extra layer.
Oh yeah,
it has to be so. I can't wait.
And I remember too, the trailers had good separation in them, and there's so much cool shit. All the falling sequences is going to be so fucking cool.
Yeah. I want to see when he's going through that whole mindfuck part.
Yeah,
I want to see that in 3D.
Yeah,
when the hands are coming out of him.
Oh yeah,
that's gonna be fantastic.
And the Dark Dimension, I think, is going to look better in 3D.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Dormammu and everything would look way better. Yeah, you can tell Dormammu, they had the contours in his face.
Oh, and they kept shifting too.
And see, what's nice is even though I didn't want him to be in this movie, it's obvious he's not really there. It's just a representation of him, and they found a way of incorporating the Ditko design into it, so it's not like a cheesy looking fire effect of Human Torch. It's like, no, he actually has texture.
Yeah.
And I thought they did a great job with that. And the Dark Dimension itself, they didn't spend enough time in there to really get a good viewing of it, but you got enough a taste where it's like, okay, I can see where this could go in the next movie. Mm-hmm. I think that this is an instance of them wanting to be grounded enough not to go too far outside of our boundaries and testing our boundaries, and then being able to go further out once people are invested in the characters and the universe.
Well, I like the fact that, like you said, this movie, they definitely pushed boundaries on, like, we're not going to do your typical Marvel movie. We're going to go this way with it, and we're still keeping, like you said in the beginning, Marvel, but not as play it a little bit, something different.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it.
It really does feel like they tacked on a bunch of Marvel shit to make people happy and kind of half-heartedly, including the humor. And then they like, okay, here's the veneer, here's the stuff we have to give you because that's part of the brand, but this isn't going to be the heart of the movie. We'll give you 25% of a Marvel movie, and then 75% we're going to do our own thing. And I respect that 75% a lot. I also want to say, I want to take something back, because you're right, you did need the grounding element of Rachel McAdams, and I did like seeing her see Strange as he comes back and contrasting her life experiences with the shits in front of her. I just wish she wasn't the love interest. I would have been okay if they were exes, but when he's cupping her face at the end and all that kind of shit and creating this promise of future romances, I wanted her to be more like Claire Temple in the TV universe, the Netflix universe, where she's not romantically tied to, I haven't seen all of Luke Cage, so I don't know if she has any ties to him, but she's not romantic at all with Matt Murdock. She's there because she recognizes that there's a need for her to be there, and that it serves a greater good, but she's not there because she's lovey-dovey. She's not there because she's even really necessarily friends with these guys. She's there because she recognizes that it's a role that she needs to serve, that this is what she does well, that there's a community there that needs her to help them to pay forward a good to other people. And I wish we'd seen more of that Rachel McAdams' character rather than just tacking on the love interest aspect.
I love that scene. I love that scene when they bring in the Ancient One and Steven, and Strange is like screaming her name out. She's like, not again. Like, fuck.
Yeah, that was cool.
Like, it keeps coming back dying or something.
I wish there was a moment where she explicitly rejects this. Like, listen, if somebody's dying, I'm going to save them. That's what I do. But I don't want this shit in my life. So, you love me. That's great. Go be a sorcerer.
I think she was still in shock.
Yeah, there was that element of it.
Yeah.
But the cupping, just his putting his hands on her face and cupping her face, and the lovey-dovey looks they're giving each other. It's like, nah, we don't need that shit.
How'd you feel when Strange had that little episode where he took a life? Do you think Strange?
I thought that was great. I loved that. Was another thing that I really was happy about, is because the guy gets killed by the jewels, which I thought was also, I loved again. He's using his brain. He's using, he knows the science, he knows the medicine, and so he's taking that knowledge from his former life and applying it to the new life. But at the same time, he took the Hippocratic Oath. So that plays into how Doctor Strange was. Of course, he saves lives, and it shows that even as big of an asshole he was early on, even in the early comics, he still can't deny saving a life. He's not going to be comfortable
But did
taking
he
a
ever
life.
take lives in the comics?
He's killed in the comics, but it was never done lightly, and it was something that weighed heavily on him, and it does go against the Hippocratic Oath. But usually it was something like otherworldly, like monsters and stuff. But if he's not a killer, he's not a guy who just runs around and kills.
Because honestly,
And
that
the
scene
fact that
caught
they-
me off guard.
yeah.
When he freaked out about it,
Yeah.
I really didn't see that coming. I thought it was going to be just like...
that's in a way the blemish on his record, right? I mean, he said he had that's the first death at hand.
Well, but that's just it though. But that's an instance where it's not about his record or his ego. It's about him
taking that oath, because he kept saying, I don't take lives.
No, I know.
Yes,
But that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
But
And it contrasts
he's never,
him-
never had a death.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying he wasn't like, damn it, my record's messed up. You know.
Well, but it contrasts him so much against the other Marvel heroes too, because Cap is killing people all the time.
Nazis left and right, all day.
which is something that goes against a lot of the comics, especially the Silver Age. But it was part of the Golden Age stuff, and it makes sense. Iron Man's killing people all the fucking time from the very first movie.
Hulk.
Thor's always been a killer though. Thor is a fucking warrior. So Hulk, you know that even though he doesn't want to take lives, people have died because of shit the Hulk's done. You just can't deny it. So this is one hero who can kind of go, no, I don't do that. I'm not a soldier. I'm not a killer. This isn't who I am. This is not the kind of things I want to do. And it gives him a good reason to be a reluctant hero, because you don't want that Spider-Man shit where it's like, no, I'm going to go make me some money. I'm going to use my powers to make me some money. Yeah, overplaying that. It's like, no, I'm a fucking doctor. I don't run around killing people. I don't want to be part of your fucking interdimensional war and shit. And in that instance, like, yeah, no, of course not. I wouldn't want to be part of an interdimensional war either. It would humanize him, and it made him more relatable to a human existence without the contrivance of the writerly intentions, which is another thing that I have to give credit to the movie on. While I wanted more of his journey to becoming Doctor Strange Sorcerer Supreme, at the same time, his getting to Nepal, even though there were some conveniences and contrivances, there were a lot less of those than in the comics, and a lot of his journey was rendered more believable by how it was written. So I have to credit the filmmakers for being smart about how they handled that.
Well, and I thought that they would. I mean, and maybe kind of in a way they did. I bet there's a deleted scene here, but whenever he shows up to Nepal, the Ancient One's like, "Oh, what are you on your seventh?" She knows his name is Strange. She's like, "What are you on your seventh surgery now?" Like, so I think that was part of how he made it to Nepal, is that they guided him to Nepal.
Well, I think they were kind of hinting that she's been watching him for a while.
I think they hinted it, but they didn't hint hard enough.
I don't know that she guided. I
to
think
explain
that it was,
the convenience of him finding Nepal. I thought that since he, you know what I mean?
I think he was allowed to reach them. I think that the journey was his own, but he was allowed to reach them. And maybe that played into his ability to track down Benjamin Bratt's character, because that seems like it'd be a pretty hard thing to do for a doctor with no income. But at the same time, I don't believe that he just happened to run into the guy. Somebody had to guide him to that place.
Well, so that's why I thought maybe the nurse who told him, well, there was one guy.
No, it wasn't the nurse. It was the PT guy.
Physical therapist.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, he was wearing scrubs. So
they're all nurses in his eyes.
That's all I'm saying to me. Oh, so you had mentioned that CBR had a negative review. What did they think?
I didn't read it because I didn't want to spoil the shit.
How's it doing in the box office there, Frankalicious?
It's doing reasonably well. It's doing a hair better than Thor: The Dark World, which made way more money than it deserved to.
And this movie has staying power at the theaters.
I want to see it again. I would hope that other people would want to see it again.
I don't think it's funny enough.
I think it had enough humor. You don't want to make it too funny.
I think that goofy, haha, funny movies will get people to see it multiple times. So I don't know if this movie's going to. I don't care what it makes the box office. I thought it was perfectly
really, this
good.
movie was made for. I'm thinking high school and up. I think high schoolers are going to want to go get stoned, go check it out. College kids are going to get stoned.
I want to see how it plays in 3D. I think that could be a major deciding
for adults,
factor.
I think this really was an adult film, a more Marvel adult film, because they did some deep shit in that, dude.
Okay, I do have my number one major complaint though. Watching this movie and watching, especially once Stephen Strange has peak power in the movie, where it's like, okay, he's now the man. Now you can see how he's superseding Mordo, and to some degree the Ancient One, since she's not around anymore, she couldn't survive the fight that he was fighting, that it's still a white guy. And seeing how extraordinarily powerful he is, and having a level of power and a level of sophistication that isn't seen in the other Marvel heroes, and then it's still just another white guy. And that's such a missed opportunity to me. If that had been an Asian actor, especially, I really wanted an Asian actor, whether it was actually like Asian or East Indian or whatever you want to call it, just anybody but another fucking white dude.
East Indian, whatever you want to call it. How can you be so simultaneously
liberal and racist?
Liberal and horrendously offensive. Wow.
But it just hurts my heart, because this is one area where you can have somebody who isn't white.
But it doesn't like hurt your heart though, right?
No, I really felt sad. I felt sad when during the last sequence where I'm watching him do what he's doing to these cities and see the extraordinary power and be like, this was an opportunity. This is something where Marvel could have done something different besides casting another 40-something white guy, and they went the same fucking road again.
Yes.
Yeah, but he's like not super likable though. They didn't do another Chris Pratt, Robert Downey Jr., white guy.
We received Google Plus ones from Kichi Baker on the episodes X-Men Apocalypse, Ghost Rider, Secret Life of Steve Rogers, Satana, Wild Agents of Marvel, Curse of Shadow, SDCC 2016-411, Tiger 2-in-1 Battle featuring Spider-Man and the Thing, Marvel SHP Summer Special 2016 featuring X-Men and Julio Iglesias, and Werewolf by Dead of Night. We received a new WordPress blog follow by Kel Goodman, WordPress blog like from Glenn Walker, and new Twitter follows from the podcasts Fast Forward Rewind, I'm Josh of the Intermission Podcast, More Gooder Than, The Quipster, and Talk Nerdy to Me. We got Follow Fridays from Glenn Walker and Xenozoic Xenophiles, and Facebook likes from Michael Asin, Keith G. Baker, Ali Batts, Joe Crawford, Ryan Daly, Kyle Hendricks, Grant Richter, and Ruth Sutherland. Also on Facebook, Mac posted, Rolled Spine Fam. We're getting together in person to podcast for the first time in forever. Any ideas for some 2 to 3 issue arcs we could read? Keith G. Baker responded, first thing that popped in my head was Vision Quest from West Coast Avengers. That particular story arc has gotten a fair few requests. It won't be happening anytime soon, though. The fact is, we're way behind on trying to cover Avengers material, especially for Mac's taste. And I want to look at the Vision, but we've got to see where the Vision came from before we can look at the radical reinvention of the character in the late 80s. Kyle Benning requested that first Squadron Supreme versus Avengers arc. That would kind of make sense around the time the Justice League movie comes out, but again, we're really too far behind on Avengers material. We need to cover more of that. He requests the formation of the Defenders. That's probably going to be happening much sooner. I've been trying to work towards covering that story for a while now. I seem to have a stronger interest in the Defenders than I do in the Avengers. Kyle requests Iron Fist versus Sabretooth from Iron Fist 14 and 15. I'm confident we'll cover some Iron Fist material before his Netflix series starts, but none of us are very big fans of the character, and that's toward the end of his run, so that's probably a ways off, if ever. Kyle requests Galactus Trilogy from FF. I think that should be within the next year. I do believe that we need to do an episode covering some of the early Fantastic Four arcs, including the return of Namor, and then if we do the Galactus Trilogy, that sets up Silver Surfer, and then we can do the Defenders, so it all kind of gets tied together. And finally, Kyle asked for the Man-Wolf 2-issue story from Marvel Premiere with George Perez art. It's possible that's on Marvel Unlimited, but it's definitely not on my itinerary. That's a character that's really tied into Spider-Man. We haven't even covered Spider-Man's origin yet. Probably a little too much of a deep dive for us, especially after we just did a Werewolf by Night podcast. Ryan Daly requested something Doctor Strange related in anticipation of the movie. Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom, OGN, maybe. I would not think that's going to happen anytime soon. I have much greater interest in covering the early Steve Ditko material, as well as the Frank Bruner material, which is why their names come up so much in this podcast. That graphic novel is way too late in the game, and it's really too much of a Doctor Doom story. Ryan continues, if the episode can come out before Halloween, there was a 4-issue Legion of Night miniseries from a few years ago that had 8 different short stories starring Werewolf by Night, Satana, The Living Mummy, etc. They had Greg Land covers. I could definitely see covering that in the future. We did kind of touch on that material, but it would be next Halloween at the earliest, and I think that would probably be optimistic as well. But I do think that's in our wheelhouse, and I could see us getting there eventually. Grant Richter requested the Rage of Ultron graphic novel, especially as Grant has come in recent months listening to the podcast and been a really great supporter. I definitely want to spend some more time on the Vision. I actually wanted to cover some Vision material before Rage of Ultron came out, and just we couldn't get our shit together, me especially. We're really too far behind on the Avengers material, so I'm definitely going to try to get some more Vision coverage onto the podcast. But I don't think Rage of Ultron is in the very near future, especially because we really need to look at Wasp and Ant-Man before anything that far into their history. Shag Matthews requested, not a comic but a discussion topic, why Frank should be committed to an asylum. I figure you and Mr. Fixit could get a fair amount of material out of that one. And finally, Zoom Yukinori said, if you want a DC suggestion, how about the Tales of the Green Lantern Corps 3-issue miniseries from 1981? I recall reading that miniseries over 20 years ago, liked it okay, but was a little underwhelmed given that they had those glorious Brian Bolland covers, but the interiors didn't seem to have the same standards set by those covers. Hal Jordan is like my least favorite Green Lantern, human division at least, and I could see covering some of those characters on the DC Bloodlines podcast, but I would very much want to look at Alan Scott, John Stewart, Guy Gardner, or even Kyle Rayner, although Hal Jordan will be popping up as part of the core New Bloods Bloodlines coverage fairly soon, actually, as he helps to facilitate the debut of one of my favorite New Bloods, Nightblade.
So when is the next Marvel movie?
Guardians, isn't it?
Ouch.
Yeah, Guardians is next summer. Because it's Guardians and Thor next year, if I remember correctly.
What about Spider-Man?
Oh, shit, you're right. Spider-Man. Hold on, let me look.
We still have. There's no more Cap movies. There's no more Iron Man movies. We got one more Thor, Spider-Man, Guardians, Black Panther, Miss Marvel.
Okay, so in order, Guardians of the Galaxy is next. That's May. Then Spider-Man Homecoming is July. Then Thor is November. So we've got 3 Marvel movies next year. 2018, we've got Black Panther in February, of course. We've got Avengers Infinity War in May. Okay, so 2018 is Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War in May. And then Ant-Man and the Wasp in July. No, wait, no, that's 20. Yeah, that's right. Okay, 2018. So there's 3 Marvel movies in 2018. Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, and Ant-Man and the Wasp. And then 2019 is Captain Marvel in March and the second Avengers movie in May. And those are the only ones we know about right now. Now, I think they might have some empty slots in there, some possible dates to add.
Okay, so
I think 3 Marvel movies.
We know there's going to be a Doctor Strange 2 coming out. Probably.
I'm pretty confident we'll see Doctor Strange 2.
2020.
Yeah. And this time I probably won't dread it.
So we got another Doctor Strange, probably another Spider-Man after Homecoming.
Yeah, but I think they're going to wait and see what Spider-Man does first. You know, I mean, I'm sure they've got plans in place, but I don't know if it's on a schedule yet.
So we got Guardians 2. You think Guardians 3?
Well, probably. Here's the thing: everything's been building toward Infinity War, whatever they're going to call the sequel now. But we know, even though they're saying, "Oh, it's not 2 movies, 1 movie broken in 2," it's still basically going to be Back to the Future Part 2 and Back to the Future Part 3. You know, let's just be honest about it. So I don't think that they're inclined to announce anything until closer to those times, as far as what they're going to do beyond that point. I know they want to build anticipation, but I'd be surprised if we get any firm announcements of anything that's supposed to take place after the first Infinity War movie until closer to the time of that coming out. I think that that's when they'll start unlocking stuff and letting us know what's going to happen in the second half of the movie as far as their future plans. Because remember too, what got this shit started was Warner Brothers having their meeting and telling their investors what they had coming up on their slate, and then Marvel responded to that by having a open forum to show a bunch of people what they had coming up. So if Warner Brothers, who probably don't have their shit locked down like they thought they were going to have, if Warner Brothers doesn't pull that shit again, I doubt Marvel's going to have like a major drop like they had either. I think they'll probably play their cards a little closer to the vest from now on. I think Marvel showed, oh, you've got plans? We've got plans too. And their plans did not make Warner Brothers' plans look good. So I don't think that their Warner Brothers is going to be as careless next time. We received retweets from Ange, Comic Reflections, Dr. G Nerdologist, Firestorm Fan, The Hammer Strikes, Joseph Crawford, Luther Manet Billisette, Misanthrope, Paquita Trotamundos, Sean McLaughlin, Siskoid, Talk Nerdy to Me, Two True Freaks, and Oofed at Fry Hole Yeah, as well as Twitter favorites from Brian Mulvey, Craig Lane, David Fior, David Glayer, David Golding, Epic Film Guys, Horror by Proxy, John D. Knoll, Nathaniel Wayne of Council of Geeks, Nethead, Rabbits Do Comics, Ryan Daly, and Upstate Horror.
Okay, that was the first one. And then
I'm waiting for him to come back for the other one. It's like, come on, dude, we're so close. We're at the credit sequence, dude. The credit stingers, yeah.
Okay. I finally watched the one everyone's been talking about, where Thor writes a letter to Iron Man and Thor.
Right.
I had never seen it fully through. On big screen TV. I'd seen it on like a small.
The behind the scenes promo for Ragnarok.
Yeah. Especially when he goes, "Remember, Cap, when you told me not to tell everyone about how we killed all those people, and I still haven't told anybody. So if you have any other secrets," I thought that was great. And I finally get your now send me a Raven joke.
Yeah.
Oh, and there was what's his name, Waika Taititi, or the fellow from the Concourse, Flight of the Concourse, is directing the movie. He did an AMA recently where he basically revealed that whatever Marvel wanted him to do, he just said fine, whatever, and then ignored them and did what he wanted to do. And I think that's exactly what you need for a Marvel movie. I think that they know the Thor movies are broken and that this is a corrective action. That's why I don't think we're going to see any of the Warriors 3. There's no Jane Foster. They've got Valkyrie in there now. Apparently we're going to have Doctor Strange in the next Thor movie. Which
so they got rid of the Warrior 3?
They haven't got, I don't
They were just super lame-os. They didn't need them.
I think what it was is it's not like they're saying, oh, we're never going to use those characters, but don't those characters. I think what it is they're just like, we're going to use some different characters and see how that works out for now. And I caught a little of the Dark World the other day and I was like, wow, I'm so glad that that Alexander chick didn't play Wonder Woman, because as much as I've got my issues with Gal Gadot, I'm just watching her play Sif. It's like, she's just kind of bland.
Stiff.
She's got the physical characteristics, but the charisma's just not there.
I saw what you did with your hands when you said physical characteristics, sir. The audience couldn't see, but I could see.
Okay. But yeah, she's just sort of there. And I know
he pointed to his brain. He said physical characteristics.
Tessa Thompson, I've seen some pictures of her as Valkyrie, and I saw her in a number of movies, and I think she's just going to have a lot more to bring to the next film. So, and I'm happy to see that Doctor Strange is going to be involved with that too, and you're going to see, it sounds more and more like the next Thor is going to be a Marvel Universe film. And the last thing I was expecting at the end of this movie...
I think it's going to be Doctor Strange just in the very beginning. And
even if it is, you seeing his role, you're seeing that there's a greater entire Marvel universe. And I did not think that Thor was going to be in this movie. So it was just surprised me because I figured there's going to be some Thanos bullshit or just like, don't get me wrong, I'm fun, but I thought it'd be like something Guardians related or something Infinity Stone related. And I was just really happy to see, no, it makes practical sense. Doctor Strange is going to help deal with some of the shit going on in Ragnarok.
Well, I like the fact that he wants to get them off of the planet Earth.
Yeah.
Back to their plane of existence.
All I have to do is escort you guys off of Earth instead of having to have like some kind of big cosmic battle. Sure, let's make that happen.
Yeah, so I think he'll probably show up at the end of maybe the next Thor movie.
Yeah. One thing I like too is that Thor's wearing like this heavy, bulky camo looking shit, like military looking shit, and it does an effective job of making him look smaller. And
okay, that wasn't just me, right?
Yeah.
He did look smaller.
He did look smaller, but I don't know that he actually is physically smaller because he tends to beef up for those movies. But it's sometimes hard to believe when you look at the comics that you wouldn't be able to notice that, Captain America's in your presence or some shit because the guys are so beefy. And it's like, no, he puts a jacket on and he's not, maybe he slouches
and
a little bit.
Scruffy beard going on.
Yeah, and it's like, he looks like a dude on the street. So he doesn't look like Thor in fatigues. So I thought that was cool. And finally, the Merry Marvel Marching Society. In Belfast, 108 Sage, Cash Flag aka Al, Chris Sheehan, Coffee and Comics Blog, Comics Social Club, Darren and Ruth Sutherland, Geek Yogurt Podcast, Glenn Walker, Gold Mind Productions, Good Times, Great Movies, It's Plastic Man, Jake and Tom Conquer Podcast, Just in Time Podcast, Keith G. Baker, Kevin Daji, King Size Comics Giant Size Fun Podcast, Michael Dabb, Mikey Ghoulish Flash, Monsters and Mystics, Oscar Blue Devil, Pietro Blacksamoff, Poop Culture Podcast, Randy Caldwell, Richard Field, Silver and Gold Podcast, Son of Cthulhu, Trekker Talk Podcast, Warlord Worlds Podcast, and Xenozoic Xenophiles.
The Marvel Superheroes Podcast is in no way affiliated with or endorsed by Marvel Entertainment. All characters mentioned and audio clips employed are believed covered under fair use, with no infringement intended against their copyright holders. The views expressed in this podcast are assumed legitimate, truthful, and solely possessed by the speaker.
And where will you be then? Base runs! Lift your head! You're on the winning team!
So he's pinching a groaner too, huh?
What was it called now? Grumbling groan, or what is it?
Something like that.
Bet you that fucking water.
I just astral projected.
Emphasis on the ass.
that whole scene where he was like fucking just
Falling.
And I saw my...
How many hands were involved?
I saw my body falling slowly, but I was flung through these other dimensions.
He was falling into the ball.
All this dark matter flying past him.
Yeah, the dark matter. Oh my god.
So the final stinger where they show
I don't know
us...
if it's the final stinger. I'm still feeling a little... Cut all this out. My wife listens to this podcast, please.
She does now?
Yeah, I told you she listens to every freaking episode that comes out.
Well, of Marvel Superheroes, not my shit.
No. Because I don't think that she knows how to find it. So.
Okay.
Too many streams?
Well, it is. It's too many streams. Because I tell her, I was like, well, because I was telling her about the Walking Dead stuff. I was like, but that'd be on the Underguides. And she's like, what? And I'm like, it's a long story.
What I'm thinking about doing, because for the longest time I thought we would do a master stream where we would just dump everything into that. And it's just too much fucking work. And I'm not going to worry about uploading to the Marvel stream and uploading to the master stream and all that kind of bullshit.
That. Definitely
so what I'm going to do is pretty much your idea where all the group shit where we use explicit language and having fun, that'll all go into the Marvel stream, including folding Underguides and Rolled Spine into Marvel. And then I'll just continue to maintain my DC shit. And then we just won't have separate feeds for Underguides and
like I said, I think we can just change the name. And I think the name just... I need to email the Shout Engine guy and ask him what our options are. If we wanted to...
Oh, we can change the name. I know we can change the name. I don't want to add a feed.
But then the iTunes account, I don't know if it would update. You know what I'm saying?
I don't know that I give a shit.
But I think that it matters, doesn't it? Doesn't it matter?
I don't think I give a shit. I don't think it... here's the thing.
But then how does Shout Engine send something
I think that...
Rolled Spine to a Marvel... You know what I'm saying?
No,
you know what I'm saying?
I think I know what you're saying. All iTunes gives a shit about is the ISS feed. And so... RSS feed. And so if we change something, I think the information will just change on iTunes because, for instance, when I upload a new episode and then you go and look up the episode on iTunes, you see the description I put in there. So that changes each time. And I think that if I change the description under the heading, it'd be the same thing.
So check this.
I just turned it into Rolled Spine.
I was thinking about you because we didn't want to do that shitty shit where we just flood a bunch of people's motherfucking shit with a bunch of fucking podcasts.
Yeah. Although I will re-upload the episodes
re-upload. And so re-upload episode 0.
Yeah.
And then maybe like a Tuesday and then a Thursday episode.
No, that's something I've thought about doing.
Space them out every week.
Yeah, but it's still ultimately, if I did the old episodes like the 0, then I would have to have a separate stream for the Marvel superheroes, and I'll be doing double uploads. And I'm not doing that shit. Well, you're talking about like a classics,
No.
Or you're talking about the Rolled Spine 0.
Just so that whenever somebody subscribes to that feed, all of the episodes are in that feed.
Yeah. No.
But you don't want to upload all the Rolled Spines, all the Under Guides, and throw them all into the stream
not
on
all
one
at
day.
once. I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying?
No. I'm not doing that shit.
Yeah.
No. My intention actually is to take some hiatuses, like winter hiatus, like around Christmas time and shit, and just plug in one of the old episodes from another stream in there
until we catch up.
Yeah. And then we'll just dump the Rolled Spine brand of comedy into that one stream, and I'll leave my DC shit separate because that really is a completely different flavor from what we do.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense for them to be separate. And also, I just produce more on those ones where we've got 3 episodes of the Inner Guys. There's no sense in having a stream for that. I thought we would produce more. We are going to produce more, but I don't want to have to feel like what's happened is I'll focus on one of the other podcasts, and then Marvel or one of the other ones will just be gone for a long time.
It has to though. But that's if you could and make more hours in the day, you just can't.
Yeah. So it makes more sense to just have it on the one stream for that stuff, but not Wonder Woman or Marshman or that kind of shit. That needs to be separate.
You do realize we were about to talk about the last fucking stinger.
We're going to it, but I think what we're going to do is I'll just roll this into the back, and it'll be our stinger for this one. Is us bullshitting about our technical shit, and people can say, "Yeah, do that. I've been tired of your fucking bullshit streaming stuff." So I think that's what's going to happen.
Okay.
Well, I'm just afraid. I think there's some people out there. Oh, so no, this is what brings me back to that. Is that my wife, my wife, she so she'll listen and she'll be like, "You think she cares about Ghost Rider?"
No,
but she thought that episode was hilarious.
Well, and the same thing goes with Paquita.
Because that episode was hilarious, dude. That episode was hilarious.
I still think Odin Force was probably the best.
Right, and she thought that was funny. She doesn't know anything. She's never met Fryhole, and she doesn't know anything about Thor.
Well, I think that the Marvel movies,
but we weren't talking about
is a touchstone, though. But I mean, you get enough of a sense of the general specifics of what we're talking about, and when we compare something to the Hulk, well, I've seen a Hulk movie, but yeah, it's the same thing with Paquita. Paquita doesn't fucking read comics, and she doesn't watch the cartoons really, so she knows the show.
I don't think it's that big a deal for someone to subscribe to one stream, because honestly, they're going to be like, these 3 guys are going to talk about a movie or music.
Yeah.
Well, I don't mind listening to these 3 guys talk about it because they're probably going to go off topic anyway and just say funny shit. So I'm just trying to play this on my car on the way to work, so I'll just put it on, whether they care about Smashing Pumpkins or not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, and sometimes the
I'm complimenting you 2 assholes.
Thank you. Well, no, I'm not complimenting you guys. I still,
guest.
and we have some other. We'll talk about that later. But there's 2 things I wanted to do before I folded the streams. One thing is I wanted to get a logo designed and some new art for the banner. I actually was talking to Willie Schubert at Comic Palooza or Space City Con, one of the 2, Comic Palooza I think it was, and he couldn't do it there. But I've got his information. I need to contact him about maybe doing a logo for us. And I wanted to talk to Tim Vigil about doing a Rolled Spine image for us so that we could kind of brand it. So I want to do that. Hopefully close to the first of the year. Plus, I wanted to do at least one other show, but the show that we'll talk about that in a little bit because I'm more worried about getting Son of Satan in the can. But I still want to do that show about the songs because I think that'd be something really easy and really short. And the podcast about songs. So we'll get back to that. Let's finish the Doctor Strange episode though. So the stinger.
Hey, by the way, I want to do a whole episode over songs at our funerals since we've always talked about that throughout the course of our.
Matter of fact, yes, that would be a good. That would because I was thinking about that too just earlier today.
Because with how I'm feeling right now, it may be my time soon.
Yeah, so rumbling groaner, astral projection.
In there, I was going through all like fucking convoy. It was a big old convoy. All these different Black Hole Sun. All these songs that were running through my head. So
the stinger with Baron Mordor. Baron Mordo.
Mordor is a mountain, sir.
Actually, I didn't fucking know that. I didn't realize. I thought Mordor was a dude. Mordor's not like the evil sorcerer dude they fight.
No, that's Sauron.
That's Sauron.
That's how little I give a shit about Lord of the Rings.
Sauron lives on Mordor.
Yeah, you have little on your feet. I'm shocked.
So,
are we talking about Mordor?
Baron Mordor. Fucking shit again. You'd think I was drinking or something. I can't talk.
I think you said Mordor earlier in the podcast too.
Okay.
Yes.
I think so too.
Baron Mordo.
So basically, are we describing the singer?
Yeah, please do.
So that guy from that
Benjamin
show,
Bratt.
Benjamin Bratt,
ex-boyfriend of Julia Roberts.
Right. So exactly correct. So he's working in some shop, right?
Yeah.
And,
well, they did the cute bit where you're seeing the sparks flying, but it's from him grinding something in the workshop.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah. So it looked like the magic at first, but it's not. It's just him,
grinding brakes, it looked like.
So he's whatever, he's working on shit, and you see like this cloaked figure coming behind him. They have a little exchange, right, about how whatever, because they recognize each other.
Hey, how you doing? This is my magic. I don't have anything to do with your bullshit. Leave me alone. And Mordo's like, no, it's not your magic. I came to a realization while I was away. There's too much magic in the world. There's too many sorcerers, and I'm going to deal with it. And he finger punches. He does like a falcon punch, but he's ripping magic instead of a fetus out of this dude.
Whoa, dude. That's not what a falcon punch is.
What is a falcon punch?
Well, maybe I'm getting falcon punch and
falcon punch is a kung fu abortion.
Oh, that should be our stinger right there. Oh, that's rough.
We're ready to go back to talking again.
Well, I just want to point out that one time...
Hillary condones falcon punches. Did you know that? Are we still talking about this?
Yeah, we're still talking about the stinger.
So that's not going to be on the podcast.
I'm thinking it's going to be on the podcast, yes.
He uses his fingers to basically pull the magic, because they talk about earlier that he didn't heal himself. He's using the magic to make himself look like he can walk, right? And probably dunk, since he was playing, which should have shown everybody that there's something paranormal going on, right?
So Baron Mordo deletes the stream.
Yeah, and then he kind of curls up on the ground.
He did, though. He did.
He was doing this with his hands, man. I was trying not to laugh.
He did the baby velociraptor hands.
Oh, that's not so then he's like, so there shouldn't be any more magic, or whatever he says. So basically, he's going to be like Dog Bounty Hunter, but for magic dudes.
Well, see, here's the thing. As I mentioned before, I kept waiting for Baron Mordo to be the betrayer who's working with Dormammu and shit, and they gave all that shit to Mads Mikkelsen for his sad fucking villain that's really not that interesting at all, right? And so I was thinking, because I kept waiting for there to be like a twist to that, and instead the twist was related to the Ancient One and the fact that Mordo wasn't evil at all, and that he wasn't the betrayer at all. And so I'm like, okay, so what the fuck are they going to do with Mordo? How are they going to deal with this? They're going to do some stupid shit like Green Lantern, where at the end Sinestro just puts on a yellow ring for no apparent reason, and that's how they're going to do it. And I realized, oh shit, and especially since they already set up the sword because he's running around with the sword all the time, they're turning Mordo into Silver Dagger. And Silver Dagger is one of the Doctor Strange villains from the Frank Bruner, Steve Englehart years, where he's a guy who despises magic, and so he runs around killing sorcerers and taking out the magic users in the world, because we won't have so many problems that there weren't people who were tapping into this stream. So that's how they're going to change Mordo. Is not only is he a good guy, at least to start with, or he believes himself to be a good guy, but he's going to take on elements of this villain who is a good concept, but he's like balding and white guy with a handlebar mustache, not even a handlebar, it's like that sort of stummy like barber shop mustache, whatever the fuck
the hipster.
So he's kind of ridiculous looking, and it's like, who would make that work better? Mordo. And that's how they managed to figure out how to make that happen so that he's not just Kai Celis, Mads Mikkelsen all over again. It's like, that works for me. I'm totally cool with that. That totally makes sense. He's kind of Blade, though, when you break it down. The black dude that's running around with a sword, hunting the people that he used to be a part of. Yeah. But it kind of works. It's still a little close to Serenity, though. But, you're still playing within Doctor Strange's lore. You're just tweaking some stuff and kind of making it work better than it did the first time around, which is ideal for the cinematic adaptation.
I didn't know Silver Dagger was a thing, so that's cool.
Yeah.
I like the concept.
Yeah, it is cool. It was a good idea because Doctor Strange had fought so many mystical villains by that point, and then have a guy whose whole thing is to destroy magic regardless of who the user is because he thinks it's inherently evil. That makes sense. That's like, oh yeah, why didn't somebody do this way sooner? One thing I do want to point out too that I forgot about earlier is the new Marvel Studios opening that started with, what was it, Civil War that started with, or did it start with Avengers?
Civil War.
I think with Civil War. Okay. I finally realized, okay, they're not showing very much comic imagery. It's all about showing the movie imagery now. And they're making a point it's Marvel Studios, but they're still using the Marvel flip for the TV stuff, the promoter stuff. So here's Kevin Feige showing, no, I have my own independent brand. I'm Marvel Studios. This is my brand. And then the other shit just plain Marvel. That's the promoter brand. And that's part of why you've got that firewall where they're not crossing over with each other. But it does irritate me because I'm a comic book fan. And it's clear that they're trying to have a point of demarcation. This is comic book shit. Now we're doing the movie stuff. This is the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And so that bothers me, and I don't enjoy seeing that flip as much as I did in the earlier days when they weren't so concerned with their comic book origins, where they weren't so ashamed of them or wanting to separate themselves from them.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying, but I mean, I don't know.
That it's kind of like in your face. It's like, I don't need to see Captain America and Hulk and Scarlet Witch at the beginning of every fucking movie, man. I think they'll get kind of tiresome. I like the more vague allusions to comics in general as an art form.
I'm not looking into it that far. I think I prefer the old opening better.
Yeah, I like the flip. I think it's that military position.
We're having a team building exercise tomorrow. I have no desire to go.
You should go. If you want to, you gotta start putting in for that kind of stuff, dude. You can't be like, I really want to do this now and make it, but then also be a laissez-faire motherfucker. You can't do that shit. That ain't how it works. It ain't how it works. You gotta suck that corporate dick. You gotta pull that corporate dick out and suck that dick.
I just read the title and I'm just like, whatever, fuck CBR. I'll be like, it's no Suicide Squad.
Don't like the jokes. Don't think that the villain Caecilius. Okay, that his plan doesn't make sense. It only makes sense in broadest strokes.
I want to live forever.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Dude, I'm sure if you look, this Suicide Squad was amazing.
No, it makes sense. It's because Caecilius found out what Doctor Strange found out.
Yeah,
but instead of Doctor, right,
and that
the ancient one had found a way to tap into that eternal youth. So they were just trying to do the same fuck thing. I don't understand what's so hard to understand about that. It's because the ancient one keeps that shit to herself.
It's mostly the shit that I was complaining about, that the humor doesn't really work, that the lead actor isn't as charismatic as the other Marvel actors.
And again, I'm telling you, they're missing
that they didn't need the action, the martial arts action in there. So
they're missing the whole point of it.
Make podcasting great again.
You said that with way too much confidence.
Full service.
Oh, and quit touching the pole. Quit fondling the pole and shit.